Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. First, our much shortened disclaimers, the trigger warnings. We're going to try to get through this as soon as possible because I am insane. And I have declared, because there's a few more hours now before the next snow/ice storm hits, that I need to go bake myself in the death pod. Now, what that actually means is going to the tanning bed because it helps with the pain in my legs and in my spine this time of the year. I call it the death pod because when I first saw it, I swear, folks, I swear it looks like something straight out of a Final Fantasy. Not Final Fantasy. Oh my god. Final Destination movie. Pleh. I am too tired for this. So, we are going back to the same paragraph that we began and actually completed last evening, but because I got so ridiculously distracted by the fact that the person they are now victim blaming and applying their best efforts at character assassinating is someone who should have already aged out of the residential school program types of services a long damn time ago. Yep, that's right. We're going back to EL. But first, if you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be right there in the description box. As always, you're going to find the link in there to the article written by Neuroclastic, the one where they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. We link it in there exclusively because this particular article has ruffled the feathers of the JRC so much that they have actually threatened this tiny little non-for-profit with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Read the article, folks. We've got their GoFundMe linked in there just in case the JRC does see through with their threat, because unlike the JRC, the rest of us are not made out of money. More's to pity, because I sure as hell would not be here right now. Especially not with, oh my god, could somebody just stick a cork in Trump? Holy mother of God. It's getting worse by the day. By the day. And I was already not happy and scrambling, trying to figure out where things are going to be with the JRC, with RFK going and taking control of the CDC and the FDA. Now I've got this dude like, we're going to take over Greenland. We're going to take over Canada. Send help. Send help. Before I go into left field, let's get back into it. Okay, so now bypassing this middle-aged gentleman's age and going past the fact that this man should have been transferred to adult services within the service system like over 20 years ago, looking at this here. Actually, kind of more closer to 30 years, now that I think of it. We did touch on it briefly, but let's go ahead and include these traumatic and serious SIBs. Traumatic and serious. Really, JRC? Really? You want to talk about the trauma we cause ourselves? Well, you know, break off your arms, patting yourselves on the back in regards to your old torture culture over there. Okay. They include banging his head, slapping his face, picking his rectal area, pinching himself, and biting his arms. Now, the JRC is also engaging in what we have noted multiple times while reading the sad sack of whatever the hell this is supposed to actually be here, and that is they will list the behaviors, but they provide zero context in regards to those behaviors. Just to get the basics here, we don't know if these behaviors are happening back to back in a never-ending stream. We don't know where they are when these behaviors are happening. And folks, when it comes to behaviors, it's kind of important to note what is going on at the time period where these behaviors are happening. Also important, what people are around when these behaviors are coming out. Are they speaking to someone? Are they dealing with a teacher? Are they, in fact, having a behavior or reacting to the threat of the GED device being used on them? And maybe that is causing a reactive behavior that they write down to demonize them. Because God knows we've got gazillion examples of that, especially considering their extremely bizarre behavioral rehearsal lessons, where we know they will deliberately trigger behaviors to punish the behaviors so we know that it's wrong. So I'm sorry, but where in the name of God is the context here? You are dealing with the FDA. Quite clearly, they are not buying your nonsense. You, JRC, your methods in trying to argue in favor of your insanity is severely lacking. Severely lacking. Okay? Context matters. Environment matters. The people around when the behaviors are happening matters. Is there communication going on? Are they socializing? Are they sick? Are they having a reaction to bad food? Most of us who are autistic have extremely sensitive skin and gut issues. Could maybe that be something that is triggering a behavior? You know, like the person who literally died in the 80s from an ulcer because instead of thinking, hey, maybe this person is sick, you decided to write it down as behaviors and administered over 88 adversive punishments to them over a 3-day period before they determined, hey, maybe we should take them to the hospital. Okay? Not just for the sake of figuring out what perhaps is triggering the behaviors, but because the JRC has a very noted history of considering literally everything a behavior to the point that it has cost other people's lives because they can't be bothered to get down to what's causing the so-called disruptive behavior. Context needs to be given here. Okay? Reactions like this don't come out of a vacuum. Whether conscious or subconscious, there's always a cause. This is why I always say that behavior is communication. It is a reaction to something either external or internal. If you don't question what that is and put in some effort into figuring out what those triggers are, you can't go back and then argue, well, obviously torture is the answer. Because how the hell would you even know? Right? Okay. Let's continue, shall we? In addition, EL's history also includes attacking peers and caretakers through hitting, kicking, biting, and pulling hair. Again, we are providing no context in regards to the behaviors that we are listing. Okay, I'm going to once again pull from my own life examples here, shall we? Shall we just? Okay. Peers and caretakers. But I was about around 5 to 6 years old. I about gave my poor teenaged babysitter an aneurysm. A lot of us who are autistic, especially when we are kids, well, we're extremely guilty of wanderlust. We don't even really think about it necessarily. I was at the park. My brother was playing basketball. It was a park just kind of right behind the back of the house. It's literally just a very shunt right into the back there. And I was getting bored. Weirdly, I have a ridiculous good memory about things that happened when I was 5, but have a memory of a goldfish when it comes to current events. So, sorry about that. So, I was feeling hungry and bored. If you go down that street and over the hills of trees, right across the highway is where the McDonald's was. So I turned away from the basketball court and I just went ahead and walked down the street, crossed the little grassy area, ran across the highway, and went to McDonald's. Yeah. And it was one of my teachers that brought me back to the house afterwards. I can't say much, folks. Not these days, anyway. When the call for nuggets happen, you don't want to know what links I will go to get the McNuggets, alright? Neurodivergent cravings are different. Just to put it out there, okay? Scared her to death. Now, if I were at a place like the JRC, what they would have put that as is Tiffany, for no reason at all, decided to disobey everyone and dangerously run across the highway. And yeah, I'll be honest, during that time, had the babysitter or anybody else tried to stop me, I would have responded with some form of violence. I'm not going to sit there and lie and say that I wouldn't. I'm saying context is key. Okay? It was not my intent or purpose to scare the living daylights out of the babysitter that day. Or traumatize my brother. Or nearly make my mom have an aneurysm. Okay? Just at that time of life, I very much had a great deal of wanderlust and had a lot of times walked all over the town. We're talking early 90s, folks. We didn't have the same level of paranoia that we do now. Rode a bike all over the place. I didn't even think about it. Alright? So, no, it wasn't me having a behavior necessarily. Yes, it was a behavior, there was a reason behind it. Afterwards, after my mom calmed down and logically explained to me why it was a bad idea, I still had wanderlust, yes, but I at least made it a point from then on out to let people know and tell them where I'm going so that if necessary, they could at least make me stop and make sure my brother, who was older than me, be with me if I decided I needed to go somewhere. All right. Now, pinching himself, biting his arms. Again, Tiffany, you just don't understand. Yes, I can. Because I've done those things. Many moons ago, I was like the kids at the JRC. When I talk about pinching or gouging my own arms, that was due to underlying undealt with severe trauma, depression, and anxiety disorder. A deep self-loathing that come from blaming myself for the abuse that was being inflicted on me from my stepbrother at the time. Okay? There was a real internal cause in regards to those self-destructive actions. Okay? Unfortunately, I do have a history of self-destructive behavior. Whether it was from when I was younger, or most notably after my dad had passed away. You want to talk about self-destructive? I mean, I paid attention to detail. As in literally looking up how much alcohol somebody my weight would need to drink to possibly die from alcohol poisoning, paying attention to detail in regards to my very willful self-destruction. Thankfully, these days, I've healed up past that. It's still there, but I haven't really had anything to that extent in a good long while. But the pinching, the biting, the smacking or punching myself, whether in the face, the neck, or the ribs, came from self-hatred and a very, very unhealthily developed urge in regards to self-destruction. Okay? Those behaviors did not come out of nowhere. Thankfully, because my mom has been in healthcare for so long, she recognized the signs, as did the teachers around me at the time. And that's when we started getting me to doctors, psychiatrists, the first round of neurologists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. Yes, I got misdiagnosed. I was also hiding a lot of things that were going on at home, too. So that might have played a role, but you get what I'm saying here. Behaviors do not happen in a vacuum, whether subconscious, where we're not actually quite aware of what the trigger is, or conscious, they don't come out of nowhere. If you do not provide people context in regards to the behaviors that you are describing, then how the hell can you ever hope to help them figure out what is triggering those self-destructive behaviors? You can't. Which means you won't and you don't want to. You want us to suppress the behaviors. And when the mask finally breaks, you get shocked when that happens. All right, folks, I'll be back here in just a moment. I gotta knock at the door. sorry about that. We do not have an edit button, and today's not the day where I actually have patience to figure out how to learn. Those are my two new shirts coming from the NFL shop because I have an addiction to football and I regret nothing. But yeah, none of these behaviors happen in a vacuum. If you do not provide context in regards to what's going on at the time when these behaviors are manifesting, you won't be able to have any hope at all and be able to discover what the triggers are. Real treatment relies on being able to dig and find what the triggers are. Until you know what the issue is, you don't have any means to fix it or at least ease it a bit. Okay? Yes, we are autistic. Yes, these behaviors are a part of the diagnosis. We are also still human beings, which means, just like other human beings, they're triggered. What makes ours more noticeable is how we react after we are triggered in regards, there's a difference between how we react and the neurotypical reacts. But at the core of it, it's still the trigger. All right? Now, let me continue here. Attacked his younger sister, gave his infant brother a black eye, chased cards, scared neighborhood children, and attacked strangers. Again, what is missing here? What is missing? Context. Now, before you say, but Tiffany, you weren't necessarily that bad. You at least had a small amount of control. Yes, that's true. My fellow neurodivergent stepbrother, on whose I was on the receiving end in regards to his physical as well as sexual assaults and abuse for years, he did go into those things. And guess what? In spite of all the anger and the hate that I carried for years and years and years that I really didn't even finally let go of until 2 years ago, to be honest, even in regards to that, intellectually, I can push my own feelings aside enough to say that those behaviors directed at me, that violence, was also not in a vacuum either. There were triggers going on in him. So, yes, even in that situation where I was the victim, I was the survivor, he was the person coming after me. Even in that situation, his behaviors did not come out of nowhere. There was triggers there, very obviously, especially considering how young we all were when it began. No one that young should even know about some of the things he was. You get where I'm going there, right? Context matters. You cannot address the problem until you find the trigger. You can't help to find the trigger if you have no context in regards to the situation where the behavior is occurring. I can say that removing all of those feelings aside now and looking at it with objective eyes. Since then, and what seems like years and years and years on his head therapy, he's not even remotely the same kid he once was. Not at all. In fact, that was very much largely that finally helped me let go of all that hate, anger, and rage I had carried for so long. And also crucial to it was always deep down knowing logically exactly what I'm telling you here. Okay? No matter how severe or terrifying a behavior may be, if you want any real hope of actually confronting and dealing with that behavior and at least being able to bring it down to a healthy baseline, everything that's going on within the space of the behavior that is occurring is important, and it needs to be documented, every single last thing anyone can remember. Okay? Everything. Doing this, where you just list all of the worst behaviors as a means to gain shock value. Because if you can shock people and get them in their feelings, they're a bit easier to manipulate to your way of thinking. It's see-through as glass. That is not real medicine. That is a smear campaign against an extremely vulnerable human being. And because I'm not going to let us forget it, in regards to, well, he has to stay here in the same program because of the device, that's the JRC's fault that this man has not progressed since then. Again, most of us from ages 18 to about 26 are all gradually transitioned on to adult services, because services that are needed when you're transition age or school age and what you're going to need as an adult are two completely, entirely different animals. You have people who do not have any idea how to deal with a person who's disabled, developmentally disabled at this age. And you're damn right, that is a hill I'm willing to die on. Now, before I take off to go bake in the death pod, we're going to sign off, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do get tend to get removed from time to time. So please, folks, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I appreciate your time this afternoon. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Caesar, we who are about to die salute you. Bye-bye, everyone.